Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending Arize Observe. Today, I am very excited to introduce folks on our Scaling Your ML Practice panel today. We'll do a brief intro of myself and then hop into our very exciting panelists. So my name is Aparna, one of the founders here at Arize, practitioner myself, and felt a lot of pain deploying models and serving them into production. So decided to build Arize focused on ML observability. And we have some very exciting panelists who have experienced this pain and kind of built data and ML teams themselves. So first off, maybe Wendy, you can introduce yourself.
Thanks, Aparna. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a director of engineering and data science at Shopify. And for folks who don't know what Shopify is, it's an e-commerce platform and set of e-commerce services that make it really easy for entrepreneurs to be able to manage and build like their businesses. I oversee our insights and commerce algorithms group. So part of my conversation today will be around the products that we leverage and deliver to our merchants. So if I can reduce it to the smallest point, Insights builds the merchant-facing products that allow merchants to be able to understand and make better decisions around their business. And on commerce algorithms, we build large-scale machine learning models that can be leveraged across our organization for different product purposes.
Awesome. I'm super excited to dig into that. Chintan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Thanks, Aparna. Super excited to be here. My name's Chintan Thuraki. I'm an engineering director at Coinbase. And before that, Aparna and I used to work together at Uber, which was great. So awesome to see you take so many of the ideas you were dreaming up there and make it real with Arize. So in a prior life at Uber, I was working on the driver side of the marketplace, working on pricing, recommendations, surge, and driver positioning, and lots of ML over there, real-time use cases. And at Coinbase, currently, I am leading engineering for the self-custody wallet product. So this is different than the Coinbase.com app that probably most people are familiar with, or you saw at the Super Bowl, you scan the QR code and get some Bitcoin. I work on a different app. It's self-custody, and it's called Coinbase Wallet. And there, a big part of my job is bringing new users into Web3 and into engaging with crypto in a safe, simple, and really easy way. And since crypto is moving fast, it's really early. There's different places that we use ML, but right now a lot of our focus is just building a great product experience, and I'm sure we're going to get into some of the ML use cases soon.
Awesome. I'm super excited to dig into that. And thank you so much for being here, Chintan. And last but not least, Corey, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're. Corey Jones here. I might be breaking up a little bit, but I work at ChickfilA Inc. I'm a senior lead machine learning engineer. My seat on the bus essentially is to help build out and scale our model operations practice. Some people call it MLOps, AI ops, all types of ops. And so over the last 2 years, we've really been getting to do some really wild and crazy things. It's not just push models in production, it's the other things that are around it. The data accessibility, some of the governance, start thinking about security. And so I kind of think about the full end-to-end, and sometimes the things that bite us all in the behind a little bit later on downstream. And so I'll be focusing in on a lot of those components, as well as just kind of the processes that are necessary for us to scale when we start talking about building as well as maintaining practices. So again, really excited to be here. Looking forward to a great discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, all of you. So can I just say what a pretty diverse group of speakers we have on the panel today, folks from, very deep tech, folks from the crypto space, folks who are, what you'd call traditional enterprise, QSR kind of focus. And, I'm sure that the data and the ML practice that is going on in, each of your kind of businesses is very different. And I'm really excited to kind of dig into how each of your organizations is thinking about how to scale your data and ML practice. So thank you so much for being here. I'm sure this is going to be a really exciting conversation. So first off, maybe what could be helpful is setting some context for folks that have joined here today. Where is your organization on its ML or data journey? And can you talk a little bit about kind of, what it's taken to maybe even get there today? Chintan, do you want to kick us off on this question?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think crypto is an interesting space because you actually have like a data set available to you, right? It's on-chain data. It's data that's literally sitting on the blockchain, on the ledger that you can use. And so I think that the interesting part about, where Coinbase might be in their journey with ML is kind of across the spectrum, right? So if you think about the base use case, how do people on-ramp from fiat to crypto? How do they take their US dollars, for example, or their local currency and convert it to crypto? They hook up a bank account, maybe a wire transfer, maybe they're hooking up a credit card. This is a very standard fraud type of problem too, right? And there's lots of prior art and great work the industry has done to do fraud and risk detection. So that's like a big corpus and a big body of work that Coinbase focuses on, is to build out these fraud and risk models to allow users to safely and quickly on-ramp from fiat into crypto. And this is through Coinbase.com, right? And of course, in that case, we're not using necessarily on-chain data today. A lot of it's just off-chain data and standard heuristics and input features into the model that you normally would use for fraud or a risk model. But then if we start looking at some more advanced use cases, right, that require both on-chain and off-chain data. So for example, one thing you might hear a lot about in the crypto space is, folks talk about NFTs, is like gas fees. So yes, gas is expensive for your car, but gas is also expensive on the blockchain. And so this is specifically for Ethereum, where gas is basically an amount of, for example, Ethereum that's used to pay a miner to validate your transaction on the blockchain. And as the network gets more and more congested, gas fees go up. So how do we build a very simple model to help users know when gas fees are rising? And we can build these predictive models, right? And that's using both a little bit of on-chain data and off-chain information. But as we push more and more into more advanced use cases, we start thinking about search and discovery on Web3, right? And this is really cool because you can literally see everyone's on-chain activities and use that to inform, hey, you've minted these NFTs, or you've bought these different assets like Ethereum and Matic, etc. Let's use that on-chain information using your publicly available address to build out a recommendation engine, build out search and discovery inputs, right? And that's really cool. And then you can augment that with off-chain data. So I think a lot of the challenge you'll see and opportunity in the crypto and Web3 space is actually blending on-chain data and indexing that data really, really fast with off-chain data, which is things we're normally used to, like name, location, things like that, right? And how do you blend these together? And how do you index that on-chain data in a schema that works across multiple networks, multiple chains? I think that's really one of the bigger opportunities and challenges folks building the Web3 space are facing today too.
Wow, that was super interesting. I had not, thought about that at all. It looks like there's a lot of exciting opportunities for ML in that space. Wendy, I'm sure Shopify, it must be an interesting time. There's millions of businesses that rely on Shopify today. I'm sure you have demand models, supply chain challenges. Can you, maybe share some of the interesting issues that have come up as you all have put more models into production and scaled up your ML practice?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say similarly, the degree of maturity of application for machine learning varies widely across the organization. When I think about the areas that I have stewardship over, especially in the generalized model space, as well as in the insights application space, some of the use cases that are most important to us, they have the merchant at the center. So that's where we kind of build value and the use case for machine learning. On the generalized algorithm side, where I see the most benefit for that is in helping to remove like a good degree of toil from merchant workflows. So on Shopify's like platform and its ancillary services, merchants often build very complex operational workflows across like all of their administrative task spaces. And we know from talking to merchants that some of their biggest pain points, if not their greatest pain points, lie in these workflows, very, very manual. So like for me, where I spend like lots of time thinking is how to like, I say like automation is almost like a second like place for it. So I'll say like workflow suggestions. How can we make this easier for you? A big opportunity one of my teams has taken on is like, it seems very simple, like a product type suggestion as an example, but like the whole like inventory management workflow for merchants, as well as like uploading and like redefining the products that they want to make available for purchase. It's very manual and it's super onerous. And like, there's not a lot of like, I think like generalized understanding of product taxonomies and how you can leverage those across like omni-channels. So this is one way we can reduce toil that's like pretty simple with like a product type inference that gives them like a better suggestion against, I'll say like a custom type, which may not be a good match for other channels they want to like sell in. So we start like being able to suggest to them like standardized types to help manage their inventory. And as I said, make it easier for them to sell across channels. Simple like use case, but actually highly powerful for me. And then in the insight space, like clearly we want to like be able to help guide merchants to like understand their businesses better. Not even necessarily to strongly influence a decision they might make about their business, but to understand it in the context of their historical performance, right? So again, simple use cases, but highly powerful.
Got it. Again, whole nother set of really interesting use cases with ML. And lastly, before I guess we kind of jump into some combo, Corey, you work for a brand that probably many people don't even know is an ML shop behind the scenes. How do you think of ML at ChickfilA? How did you guys get started with ML there?
All right, fantastic. Man, ChickfilA, when you talk about the brand of the company, a lot of people know about us. Depending on where you're at regionally, in the United States, we do. So a quick overview of who we are. ChickfilA is an organization. We talk about, I joke when people say we sell chicken, but we actually also sell great customer experiences. That's really where it comes down. It boils down to who we are in our heartbeat. Each of us is a customer. I'm a customer. Yes, I work at the corporate side of things, but I really love my waffle fries. And so I get that craving on Sunday, and we're closed on Sundays. And it goes back, and there's a whole interesting read about that. And so I recommend folks just to go and do ChickfilA if you've never heard of it. It's ChickfilA, it's hyphen FIL hyphen A. And normally the A is capitalized. I want to make sure, just in case somebody sends me an email, like capitalize the A at the end. But when we talk about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities for ML AI at ChickfilA, one of the big things that I love to encourage folks to take a look at is I just want you, again, if you're in the United States or a couple of other countries where we are open now, one of the things I would encourage you to do is to take a look and just pull up at our restaurant. Just sit there. Don't get in the drive-through. And I want you just to observe the operations that are occurring there. So you may hear a baby in the background. He's like 3.5 weeks old. So work from home life. But one of the things that I would recommend to think about is what are some of the challenges that you can see? Now, if you've seen a ChickfilA, normally there's not just 1 or 2 cars there. There might be 30, there might be 40, and we're blowing through people and getting them in and out. So when you consider that, what are some of the implications? The worst thing that could happen at a restaurant is what? You run out of chicken if you sell chicken. It's bad. We were talking about supply chain earlier. Or what if you're in that line for 6 hours trying to get just a sandwich because we're not able to get you in and out? And so we start looking at operational efficiencies. And so I joke with some folks sometimes is that our organization is very, very focused on our customer and our operations, because what do people want at the end of the day? And I think Jeff Bezos said this, is that folks want things fast. They want things in the way that they want it as quickly as they possibly can get it. And now we're talking about food. I don't know about anybody else on this panel, but when I'm hungry, I have no reason to wait. And so it's just a little bit of some of the things without going into the meat and gravy of all of this stuff. But That's what I recommend. Take a look. Really big on operations at Chick-fil-A, and we're applying ML AI in those arenas.
Wow, that is very, thanks for kind of setting the context of how ML is involved in the operations behind Chick-fil-A. So I got a question for you all. You don't just start, you don't just wake up one morning and your organization has machine learning going. So where does one have to start? What do you all think is the starting place to getting an ML platform or an ML practice going at your organization? That's for anyone.
Good
Solve
data.
Go for it.
Solving a customer problem. I mean, doing ML for ML's sake is fun and great, and there's whole industries and worlds like Kaggle built for that. But solving a core customer problem, the thing that Corey said that resonated, if someone wants their chicken, let's be darn sure we get them their chicken. In my world, if someone wants to buy something in the Web3 or crypto space, let's be darn sure that we allow them to and enable them to take their local currency into crypto as fast and safely as possible. Meet the customer needs.
Yeah, I love that. And the only thing I would add there is like that foundation, and going back on what you were saying as well, is know your why. Sometimes organizations forget why they were founded, and that core component. Chick-fil-A, our core is chicken. Everything we do to make sure that we support chicken. We're not out there building hotels and building all this other stuff saying we're going to throw ML and AI into it. It's like, this is our core, this is our why. Let's make sure that our foundation is strong. And so I think that sometimes organizations try to go off into the sunset and build something brand new that's not their foundation, and it ends up hurting them in the long run. So know your why.
Yeah. People are they're choosing ML and looking for a solution rather than using ML to solve a problem.
Yeah, and it's almost like an evolutionary stage too, because as you're all talking as well, I'm like, oftentimes, especially for the most important customer problems, machine learning is not like the solution for sure out of the gate, almost all the time. But it's an evolution of complexity. As the customer problems get more complex, machine learning can provide more solution affordances. But I think like the simplest is the best is often not the machine learning solution. And I think that also helps build organizational trust in how you solve problems with data. And then machine learning is an evolutionary step after you've built that trust.
Got it. Okay, so let's say we an organization's gotten to that first step. They know exactly the problem. They know their why. Maybe Corey, it's want to make sure you never run out of chicken, so you're forecasting demand. Maybe Wendy, it's trying to recommend the right product. But that once you get your why, what's kind of the next step? Chintan, you were talking a lot about good data and getting all this data across different, probably in different orgs and different kind of systems. Is that the next step, kind of getting good data? Or what do you think is the next step after your why?
I mean, I think so we know the why, whatever the customer problem that we're trying to solve, right? Let's say it's like a demand forecast, for example. I think there's a couple of ways to slice the next step. One, of course, is starting with the data, right? Like, let's pull up some real data, and generally what ends up happening, at least I can say from experiences, the person or the group or the team posing what the problem is, they don't own the data. So they have a lens on, hey, we think this is the problem, and this is the problem we want to solve. Let's go ahead and try solving it. But the actual team that owns the data, that generates the data that's necessary to solve the problem, it's a completely different team. So first is just people talking to each other and literally looking at rows and rows of data to understand, are we speaking the same language? Are we talking about the same inputs and the same outputs and the same objectives? And do we have the same shared state, right? Is our schema the same? Right, and schema can mean a few things, but the actual data schema itself, obviously, but is the way we're framing the problem the same, right? Otherwise, if we have different lenses on how to do this demand forecast, right, you're going to end up solving a slightly different problem.
Got it. Got it. I guess, talking about who owns the data. So, is that something that you see as well at Shopify, Wendy? I mean, is that kind of who owns the data versus who's building the model? Kind of how does the data side and the ML side start to work together?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think like the one thing I appreciated when I got to Shopify was the foundations first thinking. So different teams may own the instrumentation of data for their domain, but we have shared model structure, shared model practices, and a data platform group, as well as a set of tooling that helps us maintain standardization and consistency across those data models. So maintenance, like and operational concerns, may still live with a team, but the strategy of how to do that and ensure that like there is high trust across all of our data sets across the organization was really like the first step, right? So if another team wants to leverage a data model that is for a domain that is not part of their product practice, they can use it safely and with confidence. And to Chintan's original statement, we don't ever use that blindly as well. It's like we typically have relationships with other product teams across the organization. The first step is always that conversation. And then like you build forward together. So.
Got it. Got it. And so let's say we're now at the stage where, okay, there's no ML, there's a use case. Teams are now one-off starting to build a use case, start building models, talking to the data teams. What we see at a lot of organizations, probably at your, all of yours too, is that eventually at some point, there's kind of this centralization that starts happening with machine learning. There's a central ML team that starts to build platform so that all of the other ML product teams can kind of build on top of that. Corey, when do you think that happens? When do you think that becomes a part of the ML strategy in an organization?
I think there's and I love that question. A lot of great questions. Apparently, like, I mean, you guys are bringing the fire with these questions here. I think it goes back, and it's a term we continue to talk about as a foundational aspects of all of this. You can't have a good, strong ML, even an ML platform, if you don't have strong data ops practices. You can't get data here and there. You don't know who owns it. You start talking about governance. All those aspects feed into this. And I think that even let's say in the absence of any of those things, and you have a robust ML platform, I'd actually question if it was robust in the first place. But you have to know, it goes back. We talked about our why. We've talked about getting the data and making sure that you understand the data that you have, the processes, the people, all the components there. And now we're talking about putting a platform together to ensure that it delivers what it needs to do. I really harp on the whole concept of the processes that are necessary in order to make sure that your ML platform is going to be leveraged effectively and efficiently. That becomes a conversation that I have too often where folks have a really dope platform. You look at the nuts and bolts and they've had a lot of thought about it. Adoption is low. It's a pain to work with. As Wendy was talking about the different teams that are there that are able to support and handle the different pieces and that unified strategy, I think that's a place for people trying to get to. And so Wendy and your team, you're killing the game right there. But I think if you're really going to do this, you have to have those foundational aspects before that platform is really going to be able to, do the best it can. And I'll throw like this interesting kind of thought process here is like when we talk about model operations, this is just ML in general. Think about it. There's a lot of I won't say lawsuits. There's a lot of legislation that's coming through in different parts of the world that are essentially, hamstringing certain types of ML. So when you think about, I need to remove data, you start talking about the EU, in UK, start talking about certain things. I need to remove certain customer data. If you don't have the data ops practices to be able to identify where the data came from, how do you get rid of it? How do you kind of mitigate that? Because guess what? There's a lawsuit coming if you don't do it right, correct? And then you have an ML platform, but guess what? When you do an ML platform, what do we try to do? We do data versioning, right? And so now your data ops pops up again, and you have a situation where you're scrambling teams to try to get something because your platform is great, but the processes on the back end weren't there. And now you're fighting an uphill battle. And I don't think any of us on here would like for any of our teams, our names to be on it. It's like, yeah, we didn't think about that. I'm sorry. It breached the amount of time. Just eat that $1 million lawsuit. I don't think any of us, I like my job. And so Hopefully that answers the question and gave some perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that, I mean, the space is rapidly evolving right now. So I think there's a lot around governance and data governance and, process that, to be honest, companies are figuring out. There's not like this guidebook of like, this is the perfect way to go do it. It's a lot of it's based off of, where did you come from? Where do you want to go? And how do you build a process to kind of get there and scale your team? Chintan, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about kind of, how sometimes the people in the org don't even understand ML. So sometimes, there's folks that don't understand ML. And then, to communicate, hey, well, now we need to go build a whole ML platform to go solve these problems that still kind of don't really understand. How do you successfully kind of navigate, scaling your ML practice, proving kind of AI ROI and getting buy-in essentially for kind of building ML platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the buy-in is don't talk about the platform first, right? It's talk about what problems are we solving for our customers and how are we making our business better, right? And I think of it this way, and generally this is how I approach the platforming problem, which is let's find that key business use case. It doesn't have to be the most important business use case, but it has to be a use case that matters for our users, right? Demand forecasts, chicken inventory, or fraud when you on-ramp. Lots of like very important use cases. Let's grab the data for it. Let's start working through, and it can be a naive type of model, a heuristic-based model, or it could be a really fancy ML model. But let's start chipping away at solving this problem, right? And once you've gone through those motions, you start identifying so many things that need to get fixed. Data consistency, governance, lineage, cool. Versioning, great. Schemas are inconsistent. Batch and real time don't even like talk to each other, and so we're out of sync. So like our model input features or our model features like are lowering the prediction or the inference accuracy. So you start uncovering these blind spots. Cool. Then you make like another pass on those blind spots, like chip away at that again, still staying focused on the core problem. And the way I think about this is have a team that is connected to this problem, not a platform team to start, but the actual product team trying to solve the product problem for the customer. Because at the end of the day, it also goes down to like priorities and ownership, right? And once you've chipped away at this problem and you've made a dent in solving this customer use case, then take a step back, right? Take a step back, celebrate the team's wins. It's not going to be a perfect model. It may be even just like, a couple percentage point improvement. That's okay, right? Then take these blind spots and start now talking to other teams in your org. Because they're probably all thinking like, man, I wish I had a better way to solve this problem. And I don't know much about ML, but I heard about it. I know we have lots of data, but my team doesn't have the expertise. And start evangelizing. And then you'll start seeing you've taken this one sort of template, solved it, you try it with a different team, that template gets better, you chip away at it better. And after you get a couple of these wins, then you take yet another step back and start saying, hey, now there's a common set of problems here. Let's get a dedicated team to solve this problem once for the company. Whatever this part, it could be governance, lineage, et cetera, and let's benefit all these other product teams that have now started using ML to help customers. Right? You don't start from platform with a platform from day one. A platform for one is not a platform.
Yep. Okay, I know we're getting close to our time, and this panel could probably talk for hours because there's a wealth of knowledge here. But Wendy, I'm going to ask you to help close this out. There's a lot of people that actually want to be where you all are right now, and I'm going to try to do this in a lot of the sessions. But any advice, any lessons for folks who are really interested in getting involved in the ML platform space, and any advice or lessons that you have to share?
I don't have anything different than all the, I think, incredible like thoughts that have already been communicated here. I think Chintan like nailed it. when he said it's like you always have to bring it back to like the problem you're trying to solve for your customer. And the evangelism, like being able to like have those repeatable patterns be well replicated on other teams. Like I was like, I was like, that's a dream, because like that is not in my experience how it happens. You have a whole bunch of teams building things in disconnected ways, and that's where the platform can become helpful.
Because that's the truth. That's how it happens.
Yeah, but
this
I'm
is
like,
our dream, though.
Yeah, my utopia is that you do it. So if you're thinking of starting like that practice, take his advice really to heart. Have a team who like is able to elaborate those best practices and then distribute them across the organization for repeatability. I think that's a key to like early success.
Awesome. Well, hey, all, we could go forever, but unfortunately, the session's got to have an end time. So this is it. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Please connect with Wendy, Chintan, Corey. They're in our Slack channel, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Really appreciate you all being on here today. Thanks, y'all.